Details I learned today is that Mahogany Jackson came to the first location thinking these people were her friends. Investigators say they then tortured her, and the things that were described are why Judge Keisha Davis says she denied all of these suspects a bond. The first stop was the home of suspect Brandon Pope. Now that's where Jackson was beaten outside while she was naked. Officers say some of the suspects beat her while others recorded the beatings. Now Jackson was stomped and kicked, and then prosecutors say one of the suspects can be heard saying, "Put her in the trunk," and then she was dragged the street. Now Jackson was taken to a second location, and I want to warn you, this will be hard to hear. Prosecutors say Jackson was sexually gunpoint. Officials say she was handcuffed, beaten, pistol whipped, and then spat on. Another sad thing we learned today was that the suspects wanted the password to Mahogany Jackson's phone. Officials say they even told her if she gave it to them, they would let her go, only to kill her anyway.
It was February 24th, 2024, a night that would change everything for one young mother. Mahogany Jackson, just 20 years old, was about to make a desperate call for help. But it wasn't to 911, it was to her own mother. The text was simple but chilling. "I've been taken against my will. Call the police. Don't call me back. Please hurry." Those words would become the last communication Mahogany had with her mother before she was stolen away. What happened next was a nightmare of unimaginable cruelty. Mahogany's message, sent in the dead of night, was her final cry for help. In the hours that followed, her fate was sealed. By the time the morning came, Mahogany's body was discovered on the side of a lonely road in southwest Birmingham. She had been shot execution style, her life taken in a brutal, heartless act of violence. But here's the twist that will shake you to the core. Those responsible weren't strangers, they weren't faceless figures hiding in the shadows. They were people Mahogany knew, people she called friends. 8 people to be exact. People she trusted. And in the darkest turn of events, they didn't just take her life, they filmed the entire thing. In those videos, captured by her killers themselves, Mahogany's suffering was documented, cruelty laid bare for all to see. And it's those very videos that would eventually bring them to justice. This isn't just another murder story. This is a tale of betrayal, a tale of manipulation, and the terrifying realization that sometimes, the people closest to you can be the ones who destroy you. Mahogany Jackson's death wasn't just an unfortunate accident. It was the tragic culmination of a vicious betrayal by those she trusted most. As we dive deeper into this case, prepare yourself for a story that will make you question everything about friendship, loyalty, and the hidden darkness lurking behind familiar faces. Before we go further into this shocking story, a quick word from us. If you're new to City Crime Tales, welcome. We delve into the darkest and most disturbing true crime stories to uncover the truths that others might want to hide. So, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one of our deep dives into the crimes that make you think twice about the world around you. Now, let's take a step back in time and explore what really happened to Mahogany Jackson, from that last text message to the horrifying discovery of her body. Mahogany Jackson was just 20 years old, a young mother with a future as bright as her personality. Born and raised in Jasper, Alabama, Mahogany's world revolved around her 3-year-old daughter, Nydia. From the moment Nydia entered her life, Mahogany was committed to building a better future for her little girl. Every decision she made, every step she took was for her. She had big dreams, ones that many young mothers might have given up on. Mahogany wanted to become a cosmetologist. It wasn't just about hair and makeup for her. It was about creating a life of stability, a life that would give Nydia everything she needed to succeed. Mahogany was determined to make that dream a reality, enrolling in cosmetology school and working hard to perfect her craft. She was known in her community for her infectious energy, her vibrant personality, and her genuine love for people. Her friends described her as someone who was always there for them, someone who never hesitated to help when needed. Mahogany had an innate ability to connect with others. People just gravitated toward her warmth and kindness. But like many of us, Mahogany's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed on the outside. Beneath the surface there were complicated relationships. While Mahogany was dedicated to her daughter and her dreams, she was also caught in a web of friendships that were far from simple. Some of the people closest to her would eventually betray her in ways no one could have predicted. And how often do we hear stories like this? We know someone who's full of dreams and potential, someone with so much to give. But in the end, their trust is shattered by those they thought they could rely on the most. It's a theme that repeats itself all too often. People are taken advantage of, sometimes even by those they call friends. Could Mahogany have known that her friends would turn on her? Could she have sensed that something was wrong? Or did she simply not see it coming? In the world she lived in, friendship was supposed to be a safe place, a source of comfort and support. But for Mahogany, it became the very thing that would lead to her brutal death. Imagine for a moment, what if you were in Mahogany's shoes? What if you trusted the people around you, believing they were your friends, and then one day, without warning, they betrayed you? How would you react? Could you ever expect those closest to you to hurt you in such a way? Mahogany was someone who believed in the good in others, someone who gave her heart to people, never thinking they could betray her in the most unimaginable way. But that trust would be shattered in a manner far more violent than she could ever have imagined. And that's the question we're left with. What happens when those you trust the most, the people you would never expect, become the ones who take everything from you? As we continue to piece together the tragic events of Mahogany Jackson's final days, we'll start to uncover the complex relationships that led to her death, and explore just how deep the betrayal ran. It started like any other night, a routine visit, nothing out of the ordinary. But on February 24, 2024, Mahogany Jackson walked into Brandon Pope's apartment in Birmingham to confront him over something that had been stolen from her, a firearm that she was desperate to get back. What should have been a simple exchange, a matter of reclaiming what was rightfully hers, quickly escalated into a confrontation neither Mahogany nor anyone else could have predicted. The stolen gun wasn't just an item, it was the spark that ignited a night of violence that would end in her tragic death. According to reports, Mahogany didn't come empty-handed. She came armed, determined to get the weapon back. In the heat of the moment, she allegedly pointed the gun at Brandon Pope, demanding that he strip down. She believed he might have hidden the gun on him. It was an act of desperation, an attempt to take back control over something that had been taken from her. But what happened next was far from what Mahogany expected. Pope, humiliated and enraged by the situation, lashed out. A confrontation that could have been resolved with words turned into something much darker. It didn't just stay between two people. It involved others in the room, and quickly Mahogany found herself surrounded by a group of people who should have been her friends. Instead of a peaceful resolution, instead of a moment of reconciliation, the situation spiraled out of control. Pope, in that moment, made a decision that would change everything. A simple disagreement over a stolen item turned into an orchestrated act of violence. The friends Mahogany had trusted, the ones who had once been part of her circle, quickly turned on her. They didn't offer help. They didn't try to de-escalate the situation. Instead, they joined in. What started as an argument over a stolen gun escalated into a violent attack on a young woman. A woman they knew, someone they had laughed with, someone they called their friend. And in that moment, Mahogany was no longer a friend to them. She was a victim, trapped in the hands of the very people she trusted most. How often do we think we're in control, only for things to spiral into something beyond our comprehension? How quickly do ordinary situations flip into terrifying confrontations? And what makes people who once shared laughter and memories turn on each other in such a brutal way? Could Mahogany have predicted that the people she trusted the most, the ones she thought she could rely on, would turn her life into a living nightmare? Could anyone? What happened next can only be described as pure hell. For hours, Mahogany Jackson endured unimaginable torment at the hands of those she once called friends. What should have been a fleeting confrontation, a moment of tension over a stolen item, quickly spiraled into an ongoing nightmare. The violence wasn't just physical, it was brutal and unrelenting. Mahogany was subjected to horrific physical abuse, beaten, bruised, and assaulted in ways that no one should ever experience. But the cruelty didn't stop there. The people who were supposed to be her friends, the very ones who had shared laughs and good times with her, went further. They didn't just hurt her, they made sure to document every moment of her suffering. In those dark, shadowed rooms, the group of 8 made the horrific decision to film their actions. Each moment of pain, each plea for mercy, captured on camera for no reason other than to further dehumanize their victim. Mahogany's suffering wasn't just a twisted act of violence. It was entertainment for those who were supposed to be her protectors. They recorded their brutality, believing they could get away with it, perhaps thinking there would be no consequences for their actions. As Mahogany was moved between various locations, each stop bringing a new level of torment, the cruelty only intensified. It wasn't enough for them to hurt her. They wanted to break her spirit, to strip away every ounce of dignity she had left. And through it all they filmed it. In the midst of her suffering, Mahogany did something remarkable. Something that, in a moment of desperation, showed the last shred of hope she had left. She reached out to the one person who could help her, the one person who she knew would never turn her away. She sent a text to her mother, pleading for help. "Call the police," she wrote. "Please hurry." But her captors were far from done. They were determined to ensure that Mahogany's desperate plea would be her last cry for help. They discovered the message, and in a cold, calculated move, they forced her to give them the passcode to her phone. The promise they made to her, "If you give us the code, we'll let you go," was nothing but a lie. And Mahogany, in her last act of desperation, complied. Little did she know her compliance would seal her fate. What kind of people would do this? What does it take to strip someone of their humanity so completely? To hurt them, to degrade them, and then to record it as if they were doing nothing more than capturing a moment of triumph? As we watch this horrific descent into darkness, it's hard to fathom what could have driven these individuals to act in such a monstrous way. What does it take for someone to stop seeing the humanity in another person? And how far can someone go when they believe they are untouchable, when they think no one will hold them accountable for their actions? Mahogany's torment was not just physical, it was emotional and psychological. She was trapped, and the people she trusted were the ones keeping her there. How does someone endure that kind of pain? And, more importantly, what kind of person could do this to another human being? In the early hours of February 25th, After hours of torture and suffering, Mahogany found a way to make one final desperate attempt to reach out for help. Amidst the chaos, amidst the torment, she did something that would leave a lasting mark on her mother's heart. She sent a text. The message was short, but it was everything. I've been taken against my will. Call the police. Don't call me back. Please hurry. Those few words, a lifeline in a world of darkness, would be the last contact Mahogany had with her family. In her final moments, she knew there was only one person who could help her, her mother, Gail Maddox. She could only hope that her mother would get to her in time. But as much as Mahogany hoped, the captors were always one step ahead. They discovered the text almost immediately, realizing she had tried to communicate with someone outside of their grasp. They were determined not to let her escape, to not let her find even a flicker of hope. They didn't just stop there. They forced Mahogany to give them the passcode to her phone. In that moment, the captors promised her something that seemed like a lifeline, a glimmer of hope. They told her, "Give us your phone's passcode and we'll let you go." But it was a lie. A cruel, heartless lie that sealed Mahogany's fate. They knew they had her, physically and mentally. She had no choice but to comply. In her desperation, she gave them what they wanted, believing that maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to save her. What was going through Mahogany's mind in those final moments? Did she believe, even for a second, that her captors would keep their word? Or was she already resigned to the terrible truth that she was no longer in control of her fate? Imagine the confusion and fear she must have felt, forced to trust the very people who were destroying her. Was there a part of Mahogany that thought she might survive, or did she know deep down that she was running out of time? As the situation turned even darker, Mahogany's final plea for help would be the last attempt at survival. And her hope, just like the last sliver of light in that dark apartment, was snuffed out by the very people who should have been her protectors. It wasn't until the early hours of February 26, 2024, that Mahogany Jackson's lifeless body was discovered. Her body was found on the side of a desolate road in southwest Birmingham, discarded without care, like trash thrown away without a second thought. She had been shot execution style in the back of the head. The cruelty of her killers was unmistakable. They didn't just end her life, they discarded her as if she meant nothing at all. Mahogany's body was found under 2 mattresses at an illegal dump site, left to be found by an unsuspecting passerby. The discovery of Mahogany's body sent shockwaves through the community. What could possibly drive someone to murder their own friend, someone they had laughed with, shared stories with, and trusted? The brutality of it was beyond comprehension. A young mother, a daughter, a friend, reduced to a nameless victim, left to rot under mattresses in the cold night. As word spread about her death, the small town of Birmingham was left reeling. People who knew Mahogany, who had seen her just days before, were stunned by the horrific nature of her murder. How could anyone, especially someone close to her, be capable of such cold, calculated violence? The investigation immediately ramped up. Detectives scrambled to uncover the truth behind this senseless act. The search for answers was relentless, as investigators worked tirelessly to piece together the events that led to Mahogany's brutal end. But as the community asked questions that seemed impossible to answer, one glaring truth emerged. Mahogany's death wasn't random. It wasn't a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't a robbery gone wrong. Her death was the result of betrayal by the very people she thought she could trust. Those who were once her friends had turned on her, stripped her of her humanity, and ended her life with the same hands that once offered comfort. Could Mahogany's death have been prevented? What signs were missed? Could her trust in those closest to her have been a fatal flaw? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, how did these 8 people, each one a part of her life, become the very architects of her execution? In the aftermath of Mahogany Jackson's brutal murder, the investigation moved swiftly. As the days passed, the shock of her death turned into a desperate search for justice. The police made their move, arresting 8 individuals, people who until that night had been part of Mahogany's inner circle, people she called friends. Among them were Brandon Pope, Francis Harris, Jeremiah McDowell, and others who had once shared laughs and memories with Mahogany. Now they would stand accused of an unimaginable crime. Their friendship had turned into a deadly betrayal. But as more details emerged about the crime, it became clear that these weren't just ordinary arrests. They were the first steps toward uncovering the horrifying truth behind Mahogany's death. Initially, the suspects faced charges of felony murder. But as investigators pieced together the evidence, videos, testimonies, and damning phone records, the charges were quickly upgraded to capital murder. The severity of the crime matched the level of their betrayal. These weren't just the actions of a few angry individuals, they were the actions of people who had carefully plotted, tortured, and executed a brutal murder. Each of these 8 suspects now faces the death penalty, a fate that seems almost fitting when you consider the cruelty they inflicted. But it isn't just the legal consequences that resonate in the community, it's the fact that these were the people Mahogany trusted the most. These were her friends, people she had known and cared for. And yet, they took her life without hesitation. The news sent shockwaves through the community. Neighbors, friends, even acquaintances, everyone was stunned. How could this happen? How could people Mahogany had known and loved, people she trusted, turn on her in such a cold, calculated way? What makes someone kill a friend? What twisted reasoning could justify such an act of betrayal? And what leads someone to believe they could get away with something so heinous? The legal fallout from this case would be immense. As the investigation continued and more evidence came to light, the public was left grappling with these same questions. The courtrooms would soon become the stage for a legal battle that would demand answers, a battle that would force each suspect to face the consequences of their actions. As Mahogany's mother, Gail Maddox, faces each day without her daughter, the weight of her grief is almost too much to bear. But even in her sorrow, Gail refuses to let her daughter's memory fade. She reflects on the profound loss, remembering Mahogany not just as the victim of a horrific.
I get sad thinking about, how much life she still had ahead of her. That's gone. There's nothing I can do about it. It's nothing I can do about it. I used to say to my kids all the time, hey, whatever issue you got, come to me, I'll help you with it. I can't fix this. There's nothing that I can do to fix what happened to my daughter.
She has vowed to continue fighting for justice, to make sure Mahogany's death is not in vain. As she stood there at the vigil, releasing those pink balloons into the sky, it wasn't just a symbolic gesture. It was a reminder that Mahogany's life mattered, and that the fight for justice must go on. Gail's words echo in our hearts. I miss her so much. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. Those words speak volumes of the pain and love a mother feels after losing a child, and it's a pain that will never fade. But the question remains, can justice truly heal such a wound? Can the court system, the legal battles, and the punishment of those responsible ever bring closure to a mother who has lost everything? Or is the pain of losing a loved one too great for any system of justice to truly mend? If Mahogany Jackson's story moved you, kindly share this video with your friends and family. You might know which life you are saving, because you never know when someone you trust could turn on you. You never know how quickly things can spiral out of control. Sharing her story might be the difference in someone's life, helping them recognize the signs of betrayal before it's too late. And don't forget to subscribe to City Crime Tales and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. We cover cases that need to be heard, stories that need justice. Together we can make sure that no one is ever forgotten.